All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Unit 8, Notes 3, Multiplying Radical Expressions. So, multiplying radical expressions, we already talked about adding and subtracting them. So, this is the next logical progression. What you need to be able to do is to simplify radical expressions involving multiplication. So, multiplying radical expressions. Three things you got to remember. Number one, multiply what's outside the radical. Multiply underneath the radical, simplify what's left. Those are kind of your three big things. Multiply what's on the outside, multiply what's underneath, and then simplify it. So real simple. Square root of 2, square root of 5, I'm looking at number 1. You have square root of 2, square root of 5. There's nothing on the outside, so there's nothing to multiply. So I multiply square root of 2 times square root of 5. That's going to be square root of 10. That's as simple as I can make it. There's my winner. Number 2, I multiply what's on the outside, so 4 times 6, that's going to give me 24. I then multiply what's underneath the square root together, so I get 24 square root of 6. There's my answer. I cannot simplify the square root, and I couldn't do it on number 1 either. So here, maybe I'll be able to do that. So for number 3, I'm going to multiply all three of them together. So I'm going to multiply 2. There's nothing there, so I'm going to multiply 2 times 4. I'm going to get 8. Then I'm going to go 3 times 2 times 3, and that's going to give me square root of 18. But here's the trick. Once I do that, I'm not done. I can simplify that. So I'm going to keep that. I can break this apart into 9 and 2. So square root of 9 is going to be 3 times square root of 2. So that's going to be 24 square root of 2. This would be considered wrong if it said simplify. That is not simplified. You cannot leave it like this. This is simplified. So over here, just because there's a negative out front doesn't mean anything. I can still do that same thing. So I take negative 6 times 4, and I'm going to get negative 24. Multiply underneath, 5 times 15, so I get negative 24. 5 times 15 is going to be 75. But 75 I can break up. 75 I can break up into square root of 25 times square root of 3. So negative 24 times 5 times square root of 3. So when I multiply it, that's going to give me negative 120 square root of 3. There is my simplified answer. That's what it has to look like. So you've got to recognize when you can and cannot simplify underneath the square root. So let's take a look here. What happens if I throw a variable in it? The answer is not a whole lot changes. Here's all that does change. Let me pick a brighter color than that. Let's go, how about this color? That color looks fun. So 20 times 6. Then I take x squared times x. And all I did was put numbers together and put variables together. So I'm going to get 120 x cubed. Now, that is not simplified. That's not even close to simplified. So what I need to do is break this up and see what I can do with it. So I think that breaks up into 4 times square root of 30. And I'm also going to break this up into square root of x squared times square root of x. Now, here's why I did that. I can take the square root of 4. That's 2. I can take the square root of x squared. That's just x. I can't take simplify 30. That's as far as I go. I can't simplify square root of x or simplify underneath the radical for square root of x. That doesn't work either. So I get this. Anytime you see an x squared or an a cubed or something like that, you can simplify it. Let's take a look over here at number 6. That looks fun. So on the outside I have a 4. Underneath I've got 18 times 3, which is going to be, 54. Then I have a squared is going to be a to the 4th. All I did was multiply everything that's underneath the square root. So now, I always like to tell kids, break this apart. Take it one piece at a time. So square root of 54 breaks up into square root of 9, square root of 6. So square root of 9 is going to be 3, so this is really like 4 times 3 times square root of 6. So this is 12 square root of 6. Square root of 8 to the 4th. Well, just to show you that I can do it this way, square root of a squared is a, square root of a squared is a. A times a is going to be a squared. So my final answer is going to be 12a squared square root of 6 because a squared is going to be outside of the radical. So guess what does not go away? If you said distributive property, you are correct. I'm going to multiply here, multiply here. So I get square root of 15 minus 4 square root of 3. I cannot simplify that. That's as far as I can go. So this will be my simplified answer. All I did was distribute it and multiply what goes underneath together. So here, number 8, negative 3 square root of 3 times 2. It's on the outside, so that's going to be negative 6 square root of 3. Negative 3 square root of 3 times square root of 6 is going to be plus negative 3 square root of 18. Now, here's what I'm going to do next. I'm not done. I can simplify square root of 18. If you remember a few slides back, we broke up 18 into square root of 9, square root of 2. This is really just 3. So what I'm going to have is negative 3 times 3 times square root of 2. So negative 6 square root of 3 minus 9 square root of 2. That's as far as I go. I cannot multiply those together because I'm subtracting. I am not multiplying. So a couple more. If I multiply this and multiply this, well, if I multiply that first one, I just get 3 times the square root of 14x. That doesn't help me. That's as simple as I can get that one. The second one, though, I can mess around with a little bit. Because if I multiply all of that underneath the same square root, I get 28x squared. All right, so I can't do anything with this first one. I can split up 28. I'm going to split up square root of 28 into square root of 4 and square root of 7. And I chose 4 because it's a perfect square root. So this is going to be like 2 square root of 7. Square root of x squared, we've already established, is just x. So this is really going to be 2x square root of 7. Again, all I'm doing is using that simplifying stuff that we did at the beginning of this unit. And I'm just kind of using it in a different way. So number 10, distribute, distribute. So this should be 5 square root of 10. And what might not be a bad idea is if you hit pause right now, try this and see what you get, and then hit play and see if I get the same answer. So take a second, hit pause, try this one out, see what you get. I already got you started, see if you can finish it. All right, let's see how you did. Oh, let me erase and restart that. So negative 4 square root of, looks like 40. So I get 5 square root of 10. But then I can break up square root of 40 into that. Square root of 4 is really a fancy way of saying 2. So I get 5 square root of 10 minus 8 square root of 10. Now a lot of kids will stop here. A lot of kids will stop here and that'll be what their answer is. Problem is that I've got same square root, same number underneath the square root, so I can put those together. So there's my answer, negative 3 square root of 10. Aha, so what happens when I have binomials? Binomials are nice because binomials, all I do is the FOIL. So first, out in last. So 3 times 3 is going to be 9, minus 3 square root of 5, plus 3 square root of 5. All I did was multiply the outside one, 3 times the negative square root of 5, 3 times the positive square root of 5, minus square root of 5 times square root of 5. It's going to be 9, this will cancel out, minus square root of 25. But the square root of 25 is 5, so that final answer is going to be nothing more than 4. Now, this one It gets a little bit trickier because you notice they're all square roots. But I still follow the same thing. So I'm going to multiply that one. When I do that, I get the square root of 144. Multiply this one, which is going to be square root of 12. Multiply this one, which is going to be square root of 192. And multiply this, which is going to be square root of 16. So now, square root of 144 is 12. Square root of 16 is 4. So right away, I know I can put these two together. I'm going to get 16. Now let's see what else I can do here. 12. 12 I can break up into 4 and 3. Remember, I'm looking for a number that is a perfect square root to do this with. So 16 plus 2 square root of 3. 192 is a little bit trickier. I got to look around. I got to try some things. One thing that might take a little time to get to is the fact that this is the square root of 64 and the square root of 3. 192 is 64 times 3. Now, I used my calculator a little bit, and you can mess around with that, but still answers the problem. So the square root of 64 is 8, square root of 3. All right, now that was a lot, but take a look. I've got the same square root here and here. There's my answer. That's all I got. Okay, go back, watch this, take a look at it, see if you have questions, come and talk to me. Thank you very much.